For as long as she could remember, Lyra's world had been only half the size of everyone else's. While others walked tall, she saw everything from the height of her wheelchair. Her life moved at the slow pace of its small wheels. She could not run, could not dance, could not even stand without falling. She was born this way, with legs that never worked. And every healer in her alien colony had told her the same thing: could not be fixed. 15 long years had passed like that. She had grown used to watching people pass her by. Crowded marketplace, voices echoed around her, footsteps rushing past, but nobody stopped to look at her face. To them, she was just part of the street, like a bench or a post, something to go around, not someone to speak to. That day was cold, kind of cold that made the metal of her chair sting under her fingers. Lyra sat near the edge of the market, her small blanket wrapped around her lap. She was selling little trinkets she had made, pieces of glass polished smooth, tied with thin wire, shaped into necklaces and bracelets. It was all she could do to earn enough for food. She kept her head down, afraid to meet the eyes of the people who walked by. Most of them would glance at her legs and then look away quickly, as if the sight of her weakness was uncomfortable for them. Some looked with pity, others with indifference, but nobody had ever stopped for more than a moment, until he came. A tall figure stepped out of the crowd, different from the others in every way. His skin was pale compared to her people, his hair dark and cut short, his clothes simple but strange, made from a fabric she had never seen. He moved with quiet confidence, and his eyes were not the kind that rushed past her. They were sharp, focused, and they stopped directly on her. He walked over and crouched beside her chair, lowering himself so his face was at her level. "Why do you look so sad?" he asked. Lyra blinked in surprise. Nobody had spoken to her like that in years. She tried to answer but hesitated, unsure if this man was just being polite. "I'm fine," she murmured, though the words felt false even to herself. The man tilted his head, studying her. "No, you're not," he said simply. "Tell me what's wrong." Something in his tone made her feel like she could speak. Like maybe he would actually listen, she told him quietly. That she had been in this chair since she was a child. That her legs had never worked. That every healer had told her there was no hope. He didn't look away. He didn't sigh or offer empty sympathy. Instead, a small smile touched his lips. "I can fix that," he said. Lyra almost laughed, a sharp sound that came from years of disappointment. "You can't," she replied, shaking her head. "No, one can." He reached into a small bag at his side and pulled out a narrow metal case. When he opened it, she saw tools, strange shining instruments, unlike anything she had seen in her colony. They looked advanced, precise, and powerful. "My name's Daniel," he said. "I'm human, and humans, we don't like the word." Impossible. The marketplace noise faded in her mind. She stared at him, unsure whether to feel hope or fear. She had met traders from other worlds before, but none had ever spoken so directly, so confidently. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Daniel shrugged lightly. "Because you need help, and I can give it." The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, like it was the most natural thing in the universe, made something stir inside her chest. A warmth she hadn't felt in years, but with it came doubt. She had learned not to trust such promises. Too many times people had offered kindness only to walk away when they realized how broken she really was. Still, there was something different in his eyes. That determination. He glanced at her legs, then back at her face. "If you want to walk, I'll make it happen," he said. "But I'll need a few things first." She hesitated, her fingers tightening on the arms of her chair. Her voice was small when she asked, "What kind of things?" "Parts," he said simply. "Special. Components, mechanical and biological. Some of them I can build myself, others I'll have to acquire." She frowned. "Acquire? From where?" His smile widened slightly, but there was something dangerous behind it. "From people who don't like to share." Lyra's stomach turned. She had heard enough about the lower districts to know what that meant. Dangerous men controlled those areas. men who didn't forgive anyone who got in their way. "You can't go there," she said quickly. "It's not worth it." Daniel leaned closer, his voice low and calm. "It's worth it to me." For the first time in her life, Lyra wondered what it might feel like to stand, to look someone in the eye without tilting her head back, to take a step forward on her own. That thought was terrifying, but it was also intoxicating. She didn't know if she could trust him, but she knew this. If she said no now, she might never get this chance again. And so, with her heart pounding, she whispered the words that would change her life forever. "All right," she said. "I'll let you try." Daniel stood, closing his metal case with a quiet click. "Good," he replied. "Then the real work begins." As he walked away, disappearing into the crowd, Lyra sat frozen in her chair. The marketplace noise returned around her, but it no longer felt the same. Somewhere deep inside, the first spark of hope had been lit, and this time, she wasn't sure she wanted to put it out. That night, Lyra could not sleep. Her small home felt colder than usual, though the blanket around her was tight. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's face. The way his voice had sounded steady, confident, as if he had already decided her future. She tried to tell herself it was nothing. People made promises all the time. Those people had never returned. Still, something about Daniel's words kept circling in her mind. He had not asked for money, not even for a favor in return. He had only said, "If you want to walk, I'll make it happen." The next morning, the market was alive again, filled with the same noise, the same rushing crowd. Lyra was arranging her small trinkets when she noticed him walking toward her. His expression hadn't changed, no hesitation, no doubt, as if he had been doing this every day of his life. "I've found a way to get the parts," he said without greeting. "But I'll need to act fast before they disappear into someone else's hands." Lyra frowned. "You mean you're really going through with this?" Daniel gave her a look that made her feel foolish for even asking. "I said I'd help you, didn't I?" She wanted to believe him, but there was something dangerous in his plan. "Where are these parts?" she asked. He glanced around the busy street, lowering his voice. "In the lower district, a warehouse run by one of the gangs." Her hands tightened on her lap. "No," she said quickly. "You can't. Those people are killers." "I'm not planning to fight them," Daniel replied. But the small smile on his face told her that he wasn't exactly afraid either. "You don't understand," she whispered, leaning forward. "They don't care if you're human or alien. If you take from them, they'll hunt you down." His gaze met hers, calm and unwavering. "Then I'll just have to make sure they can't catch me." For a long moment, she just stared at him. She wanted to tell him to forget it too. Walk away before he got himself killed. But deep inside, selfish part of her, the part that had dreamed of walking, wanted him to take the risk. "What if you don't come back?" she asked finally. Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he crouched again so they were eye to eye. "Lyra, I've been to worse places than that warehouse. I've walked out every time. I'll come back, and when I do, you'll be standing." Her chest felt tight. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not with pity, not with empty comfort, but with certainty. She had no reason to trust him. And yet she did. "Why?" she asked again. "Why are you doing this for me?" He smiled faintly. "Because humans fix things that are broken, and you, Lyra, you're not broken. You've just been waiting for the right tools." The words struck her harder than she expected. For years, she had been told she was incomplete, a burden less than others. Hearing him say otherwise made her feel lighter, as if something heavy had shifted inside her. Before she could respond, Daniel stood. "Stay here. I'll be back by nightfall." "Daniel," she started, but he was already moving into the crowd. Disappearing from sight, Lyra sat in her chair, the noise of the market rushing back around her. She stared at the space where he had been, torn between fear and hope. She didn't know it yet, but by the end of the day, her life would change forever. The lower district was a place most people avoided, but Daniel walked into it like he belonged there. The streets were narrow, the buildings leaning over as if they were listening, and every shadow seemed to have eyes. Neon signs flickered in. Strange alien symbols, their light bouncing off puddles of oily water. The air smelled of rust, smoke, and danger. Lyra had warned him, but he didn't slow his steps. He knew the type of people who ruled this part of the city. He had dealt with worse before. At the heart of the district stood the warehouse, its walls patched with metal plates and guarded by two large alien men with jagged tusks and weapons strapped to their backs. Daniel didn't bother hiding. Instead, he walked straight toward them, hands in plain sight. One of the guards stepped forward, blocking his way. "Outsiders don't come here without a reason," he growled. Daniel's voice was calm. "A reason? I'm here to talk to your boss." The guard's narrow eyes scanned him up and down. "You're human," he said like it was a curse. "Humans don't survive long here." Daniel's mouth twitched into a small smirk. "Then I guess I should make this quick." There was a tense pause before the guards let him inside. The warehouse was dim, filled with crates stacked high and the hum of machinery. At the far end, sitting on a chair made from salvaged ship parts, was the gang leader, a massive alien with deep crimson skin and cybernetic arms. His sharp eyes locked on Daniel the moment he stepped in. "You must be very brave or very stupid to walk in here alone," the leader rumbled. Daniel didn't flinch. "I need parts," he said. "High-grade servo motors, adaptive neural links, and stabilizer joints." The leader's laughter was like a low growl. "What makes you think I would give them to you?" Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a small chip, sliding it across the table. "'Cause I can pay. Not in credits and information. Information worth more than anything you've got in this building." The leader tilted his head, intrigued, but still suspicious. "What kind of information?" Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "A shipment route. One your rivals don't know about. A convoy full of weapons, unguarded for 3 minutes every cycle." The leader's cybernetic fingers tapped the arm of his chair. The room was silent except for the faint buzz of the lights. Then, slowly, a grin spread across his face. "If this information is real, you'll have your parts." "It's real," Daniel said. "But you don't get the location until I walk out of here with what I need." The alien leader studied him for a long moment, then nodded to his men. Within minutes, 3 crates were set on the table, each one containing exactly the components Daniel had listed. Daniel checked them carefully, his sharp eyes scanning for damage. Once he was satisfied, he slid a small data stick across the table. "The convoy passes through the arid pass every 3rd night. Sector 9. The leader chuckled darkly. "You've got nerve, human. I like that. Get out before I change my mind." Daniel didn't wait to be told twice. He left the warehouse with the crates in his arms, disappearing into the twisting streets. Far away in the upper district, Lyra sat in her chair, watching the fading light of day. Every sound from the street made her heart jump. She didn't know if Daniel was still alive or if she would ever see him again. But in the shadows of the city, the human walked back toward her, carrying the future in his hands. The sun was gone by the time Lyra heard the knock on her door. It wasn't loud, just a single, steady rap that made her freeze in place. She rolled herself toward it, her hands trembling. For hours she had imagined every possible outcome. From Daniel never returning to someone else, bringing her the news she feared. She unlocked the door slowly, and there he was. Daniel stood in the dim light of the street, his jacket torn, one sleeve ripped nearly to the shoulder. A thin cut traced his cheek, and his knuckles were scraped raw. But his eyes were calm, steady, and in his arms were 3 crates. "You're late," Lyra said, though her voice shook. "I'm alive," Daniel replied with a half-smile. "And I have what we need." He stepped inside, placing the crates gently on the floor. As the lids came open, Lyra's breath caught. Inside were gleaming components, polished servo motors, shining neural connectors, smooth stabilizer joints. That looked like they belonged on a starship, not in her small home. Her fingers hovered over them, afraid to touch. "How did you?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he began unpacking the parts with precise care, his movements quick but controlled. "It wasn't free," he said finally. "It wasn't easy." She could see it in his hands, the slight shake from adrenaline, the dirt under his nails, the faint smell of smoke on his clothes. "You fought them," she whispered. "I negotiated," he corrected. Then, after a pause, and I didn't walk away clean. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. This man, a stranger just a day ago, had risked himself for her, something even her own people had never done. Daniel looked up and caught her staring. "You don't need to thank me yet," he said. "We still have to build them." Set up a small work table in the corner of her room, laying out tools she didn't recognize. The soft hum of his portable generator filled the space, mixing with the quiet clink of metal. As he worked, she watched his hands, steady, precise, moving like someone who had done this 1,000 times. She wanted to ask why he was helping her, what he gained from this. But every time the question reached her lips, it died there. Hours passed. The city outside grew quiet, and the air in the room filled with the faint scent of heated metal. Finally, Daniel leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "They're ready," he said. Lyra's heart pounded as she looked at them, two perfectly engineered robotic legs. Their surface, a sleek dark alloy with thin glowing lines running along the sides. They didn't look heavy. They looked alive, as if they were waiting for her, but beneath her excitement was fear. 15 years in a chair had taught her that hope could hurt more than anything else. Daniel seemed to sense it. "You don't have to do this tonight," he said gently. "We can wait until you're ready." Lyra took a deep breath, her hands curling into fists. "Oh, I've waited long enough." Daniel's eyes met hers. And for the first time, she thought she saw something there. Not just determination, but pride. The night was still and quiet, but inside that small room, the air was charged with something new, the feeling that the impossible was about to become real. "If you want, I can make part 5 the moment of transformation." Lyra's first time standing in over 15 years, with powerful emotional detail. "Do you want me to continue?" said. "Start with part 5. More unique, ChatGPT said. "Part 5 the first." Step. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the generator. The robotic legs rested on the table like two sleeping beasts, their sleek alloy gleaming under the dim light. Lyra stared at them, her heart thundering so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. For 15 years she had dreamed of walking. But now, with the chance right in front of her, fear wrapped itself around her chest. Daniel knelt beside her chair, his voice steady. "Once we start, there's no going back. You'll feel things you haven't felt in years. Weight pressure, the pull of gravity. It might hurt at first." She swallowed, her throat dry. "I can take it." Without another word, Daniel powered up the interface. The soft blue glow from the connection ports bathed the room in light. He moved with the calm focus of someone who had done this before, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of anticipation, as if this meant something to him too. Piece by piece, he worked. The old braces on her legs came off there, cold weight leaving her bare. She felt exposed, almost vulnerable, but Daniel's hands were gentle as he positioned the first robotic limb. The alloy was warm from the tools, and when it locked into place, a strange shiver shot through her body. Then came the neural link. A thin connector slid against her skin, bonding with the nerve ports in her thighs. First there was nothing, and then, like a spark in the dark, sensation bloomed. She could feel the weight of the leg, the smooth pull of the joint as she thought about moving it. Her breath hitched. "That listens to me." Daniel's mouth curved into a faint smile. "That's the idea. Now for the other." When both legs were attached, the glow from their side panels pulsed softly, as if they were alive. Daniel stepped back, wiping his hands on a cloth. "All right, let's see if they work." The words were simple, but to Lyra, they sounded like the start of something enormous. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair so tightly her knuckles whitened. She pushed herself upward at first. Her body resisted, the old habits of weakness pulling her down. Then the robotic servos engaged. Power surged through the alloy into her muscles. Her legs straightened. She was standing. Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment she swayed, but Daniel's hand steadied her. The room seemed taller, brighter. She could look him in the eye without tilting her head back, and the realization made her eyes sting. "You're doing it," Daniel said quietly. "You're standing on your own." A tear slipped down her cheek, but she laughed through it, a sound full of disbelief and joy. She took a small step. The ground felt solid, strange, and thrilling under her feet. Then another step. Her legs obeyed her thoughts, smooth and strong like they had always belonged to her. She turned toward him, her voice trembling. "Daniel, I'm walking." His smile deepened, but there was something else in his gaze, something softer, almost protective. "I told you, humans don't like impossible." In that moment, she realized it wasn't just the legs he had given her. He had given her the choice to move forward, and she intended to take it. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the generator. The robotic legs rested on the table like two sleeping beasts, their sleek alloy gleaming under the dim light. Lyra stared at them, her heart thundering so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. For 15 years she had dreamed of walking, but now, with the chance right in front of her, fear wrapped itself around her chest. Daniel knelt beside her chair, his voice steady. "Once we start, there's no going back. You'll feel things you haven't felt in years. Weight, pressure, the pull of gravity. It might hurt at first." She swallowed, her throat dry. "I can take it." Without another word, Daniel powered up the interface. It's a soft blue glow from the connection. Ports bathed the room in light. He moved with the calm focus of someone who had done this before, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of anticipation. As if this meant something to him too. Piece by piece, he worked. The old braces on her legs came off, they're cold, weight leaving her bare. She felt exposed, almost vulnerable, but Daniel's hands were gentle as he positioned the first robotic limb. The alloy was warm from the tools, and when it locked into place, a strange shiver shot through her body. Then came the neural link. A thin connector slid against her skin, bonding with the nerve ports in her thighs. At first there was nothing. And then, like a spark in the dark, sensation bloomed. She could feel the weight of the leg, the smooth pull of the joint as she thought about moving it. Her breath hitched. "It listens to me." Daniel's mouth curved into a faint smile. "That's the idea. Now for the other." When both legs were attached, the glow from their side panels pulsed softly as if they were alive. Daniel stepped back, wiping his hands on a cloth. "All right, let's see if they work." The words were simple, but to Lyra, they sounded like the start of something enormous. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair so tightly, her knuckles whitened. She pushed herself upward at first. Her body resisted, the old habits of weakness pulling her down. Then the robotic servos engaged. Power surged through the alloy into her muscles. Her legs straightened. She was standing. Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she swayed, but Daniel's hands steadied her. Now the room seemed taller, brighter. She could look him in the eye without tilting her head back, and the realization made her eyes sting. "You're doing it," Daniel said quietly. "Now you're standing on your own." A tear slipped down her cheek, but she laughed through it, a sound full of disbelief. "Enjoy?" She took a small step. The ground felt solid, strange and thrilling under her feet. Her legs obeyed her thoughts, smooth and strong, like they had always belonged to her. She turned toward him, her voice trembling. "Daniel, I'm walking." His smile deepened, but there was something else in his gaze, something softer, almost protective. "I told you, humans don't like impossible." In that moment, she realized it wasn't just the legs he had given her. He had given her the choice to move forward, and she intended to take it. Morning sunlight spilled across the narrow streets, glinting off the metal of Lyra's new legs. She stood outside her small home, the same spot where she had spent years watching the world from her chair, only this time she wasn't sitting. Daniel walked beside her, not guiding, not pulling. Just there, close enough that if she stumbled, his hand would be ready. At first, her steps were slow. The cobblestones felt uneven, and every sound, the soft hiss of the servos, the faint hum of the stabilizers, reminded her that these legs were new. But as she moved, something began to change. Her stride lengthened, her balance steadied, and the rhythm of her walk became almost natural. The people of the marketplace noticed. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. She saw faces she recognized. Shopkeepers, Passers-by neighbors, the same ones who had looked over her for years. Now they stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. "Is that Lyra?" Someone whispered. "She's walking," another murmured. As if saying it out loud might make it less impossible. A merchant she had known since childhood stepped forward, blinking as though seeing her for the first time. "How?" Again. But his voice trailed off as he glanced at Daniel, whose calm expression gave away nothing. Lyra didn't stop to explain. She kept moving, weaving between stalls, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face in a way she never had before. The market that once felt like a prison now seemed alive, full of paths she could choose. Then, without warning, she broke into a run. It wasn't graceful at first, her steps were awkward, her balance wavered, but the sensation of speed thrilled her. The wind touched her cheeks, her hair pulled back from her face, and for the first time in her life, she felt free. Daniel jogged after her, his lips curving into a rare smile. "Careful, you'll wear them out on the first day," he called, laughed a bright, unrestrained sound, and slowed beside him. "I didn't know the world could feel like this. Most people don't," he said. "They forget what it means to move because they've never lost it." She looked at him then, her eyes holding something more than gratitude. "You gave it back to me." He shook his head. "You took it back. I just built the tools." Sun climbed higher, and the city stretched out before them. Lyra glanced toward the distant spaceport, where ships rose into the sky like silver birds. Her legs could carry her there now. They could carry her anywhere, and for the first time, she believed she might actually go. By evening, Lyra and Daniel had left the busy streets behind, walking along the quiet ridge that overlooked the city. From here, the skyline glowed against the darkening sky, the lights of ships blinking as they drifted toward the stars. Lyra stood at the edge, her new legs steady beneath her. She hadn't sat down all day, not once, and the thought made her smile. The aches in her muscles were new, but they felt alive, proof that she was truly standing on her own. Daniel rested against a low wall nearby, watching her. "So," he said, "what's next for you?" She turned to him, the question catching her off guard. For so long, her life had been measured in how far she could push her chair before her arms grew tired. She had never thought about what came after walking. "I don't know," she admitted. I want to see more, beyond this city, beyond this planet." Her gaze flicked toward the spaceport in the distance. "If I can walk, I can travel. If I can travel, maybe I can find something bigger than this life." Daniel nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "That's the thing about freedom. Once you have it, you start wanting more." She studied him for a moment. "You could have walked past me that day. Why didn't you?" His eyes met hers, calm but serious. "Not because no one should be left behind when they can be brought forward. And because—" He paused, then gave a small shrug. "Helping you reminded me why I started fixing things in the first place." Lyra felt something warm settle in her chest, deeper than gratitude, stronger than simple thanks. It was the knowledge that she had been seen, truly seen by someone who refused to accept the limits the world had set for her. The wind shifted, carrying the faint hum of engines from a ship lifting into the sky. She took a slow breath, feeling the weight of the ground under her feet, the balance in her stance, the power in her legs. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. "You didn't just give me legs, Daniel. You gave me a future." "Toward the glowing city? Then walk into it, and don't stop." She smiled, turning her eyes to the horizon. The path ahead was no longer something she could only imagine. It was something she could step onto, one sure stride at a time. That night, under a sky full of stars, Lyra began her new life, not as the girl who could not stand, but as the woman who could go anywhere.